Welcome back to The Creative Real Estate Agent. I'm your host, Anastasia Forrest, broker associate with eXp Realty and creative person. It is the 18th episode of the show. And today I've got an awesome guest with me. His name is Stephen Ross. He's written a book called Doors Open When You Knock, which is not explicitly about door knocking. That is a metaphor. We'll get into it, but he's currently based over in Colorado. He's been in real estate since 2005, and his main source of lead generation is door knocking. He's knocked over 125,000 doors, and ironically describes himself as lazy and antisocial. I know this because I read his book, but he's clearly not afraid of doing the hard stuff. So we're going to have a conversation, challenges some of the real estate myths out there, the realtor myths, and also about being creative and being the creator of your own business and going outside the box. So welcome to the show, Stephen.
Awesome. Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
Thank you. Yeah. I appreciate you getting up bright and early at 10 a.m. over in Colorado to chat with me today.
I've been up for long times. No problem.
All right. Yeah. It's noon over here in Florida, but it looks like it could be 10 a.m. It's pretty overcast today. So kind of a sleepy day. I'm having a little bit of trouble waking up, to be honest with you. I've been up since 7, but I'm like still struggling.
I mean, this isn't what you want to talk about, but one of the great things about real estate and we can talk about all the multiple lessons you get from life if you're paying attention, is when all these years of knocking on doors and you're outside much of the year, for at least an hour, 2 or 3 a day, you start to get a real sense of the cycles, not just the cycles of the seasons, but the cycles of how human beings, at least in the US, operate. And I kid you not, man, when Memorial Day hits, it is summertime. And it's like our bodies we're like, it's summer. We should be relaxing now. We shouldn't be working that hard. It's like automatic.
So you're right so funny.
You're right on key. You're right on point here.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah. Other people have been saying, I'm so tired lately. And it's also about to rain, which just something, the barometric pressure or something, there's something to it. That's really interesting that you've been able to make that observation year in, year out. You start to see patterns, I suppose.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Cool. Well, before we really get into the meat of the conversation, I like to do a couple icebreaker type questions. And so I'm going to ask you this, and you've probably been asked this before. Before I talk with somebody and feature them on my show, I do research on them, which is really easy to do these days with the internet. And I got a whole bunch of links showing up for this guy, another Stephen Ross. Do you know there's another one of you, but he's a billionaire real estate developer?
Yeah, and he owns the Miami Dolphins.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. It said he was a real estate or a sports team owner. I didn't know it was the Miami Dolphins.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. So you've got a double, but he spells his name differently.
He does it, and he's a little older than me.
Okay. I didn't look at his picture, but yeah. I'll take your word for that. But I thought that was so funny. I was like, oh my God, he's a billionaire real estate developer, philanthropist, and sports team owner, Stephen Ross.
He's a super cool guy. I've never met him, but when Gary V used to do his daily vlogs, early days, he's friends with that guy, or they work in the same building or whatever, and he'd pop on, and he just looks like a cool guy. But he's older. He's like mid to late 70s. I mean, he could be my dad.
Oh, wow. Well, interesting. Well, you're the next model.
Apparently.
Stephen Ross 2.0.
There you go. I had to create different websites, which I haven't built out yet. This Stephen Ross. Not that one.
It gets confusing. My husband, Sean Forrest, when he and I met through music. So we were initially working on putting out music and albums together. And I was doing a lot of the promotion and internet stuff and the marketing stuff. And I soon discovered that there was another musician out there named Sean Forrest, spelled the same exact way, Sean, Christian singer. And it's like, oh man, that just makes it a little difficult to brand yourself if it was just you. I mean, luckily you got me. So Sean and Anastasia, that's tough if there's somebody with your same exact spelling of your name doing something very similar to you.
That's right. That's right.
You gotta find something different. But what you're doing totally works. I just thought it was a fun coincidence. And hey, I think a good sign. I mean, if you find somebody that has your same name that's doing something really awesome, I mean, that's a lot better than finding somebody that's like not doing so great. So
100, yeah, for sure. I remember selling a house one time, and I was representing the buyer, and the my client went and Googled the house and had found out that, like, 15 years earlier, there was a murder or a death or some spooky,
Oh
which would
no.
creep out a lot of people. She's like,
Yeah.
I don't care.
Oh,
Like, good.
she was just morbidly curious.
Morbidly curious. So,
Oh, that's funny. Oh man. All right. Well, I mean, I guess that's the type of I mean, I guess that works out well for everyone if she's not bothered by it. She knows, it's already out and she figured it, she knows it's out there. So
yeah.
yeah, I've heard some stories like that too. One of my clients was a one of the people that picks up the phone for 911. I can't think of the technical term for that position, but anyway,
911 operator.
yes, and it's something like that. Yeah, and she looked up she knows all the records, the police records of what happened, and apparently the piece of property that she was going to be buying, somebody had hung themselves in that
Nice.
same lot, and there had been some shady stuff that had happened there. But she also was not deterred because new start, new place, totally different time.
Yeah,
All kinds of crazy stuff has happened where we are probably sitting right now. So
for
anyway,
sure. For sure.
totally off the subject.
Yes,
Sorry about that.
that's
So
okay.
so let's get into it a little bit. So I read your book. I read your entire book, Doors Open When You Knock. I absolutely love the title, by the way. And I appreciate a good metaphor. I studied philosophy in college, and I love symbolism, so I'm all about the symbolism. So I totally connected with it. And you actually seem like somebody that's like super, like really healthy. And I actually know that you're 50 because I saw your email about it. So, and that's going to come up later. So I don't think I'm disclosing any personal
It's totally
information
fine.
here. But man, you look like you're like, I don't know, like 30s, like late 30s or something. So you're pretty healthy. Do you get this vibrance from your door knocking?
I get it from my 12-year-old potty humor. I think is I like to laugh and have fun and keep it light. And someone I can just share, if you don't mind, I'll just share a quick story to highlight what I mean. Uh, Someone's asked me, well, what do you do before you go to the doors? Like, how, what's your routine? What's your routine? Like, it's something magical. We all have routines, and you're right there. We all have routines that either work for us or don't. But one routine that does work for me, and I use it actually whether I'm going to the doors or going on any appointment, and I got it from somebody else, is I listen to comedy before I go do something like that to put me in the right mindset, to be joyful, light, not so significant, not so heavy, and just being a good, because you never want to be, and I took this from Larry Kindle, you never want to be the person where the room got lighter because you left, right? I never want to be I never want to be that person. And so part of it is just trying to let go of the significance, which I can be very. And so I would say that would be the only thing I can think of. I just thought that's true. That I think that is definitely one thing that I feel like keeps me youthful, is just being light.
I like that. I appreciate that. Totally relate to that. I agree that, I mean, humor is I don't know, helps keep us sane and it helps everybody connect and relax. So I'm sure when you go up to somebody's door and maybe usually maybe a stranger, if you haven't knocked that door before, yeah, to come up and just already have that energy going on when they open it, they're just gonna already have like a better feeling about opening the door, I would think.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, who doesn't want to have a little laughter in their day, really? And if you can't be open to laughter, you're for sure someone that I don't want to hang around. right? And not
Yeah.
like I'm better than them, but
Yeah.
seriously, like, come
Right.
on.
Right. We can't take ourselves too seriously. Um, so okay, so back to the description. I read this in your book. You said you feel like you're lazy and antisocial. And so an introvert, you described yourself as an introvert. So what made you want to get into real estate? What made you think that this was a good career for you? Which obviously it has turned out to be, but what
It,
pulled
it
you in that direction?
Yeah, it has turned out, but right, I'm the worst person to be a real estate agent because I don't meet any of the, using air quotes for anyone who might be just listening. I'm not the typical agent. I don't sponsor the PTO. I don't volunteer at the school. I don't do open house. I don't do parties. I don't, socialize with all the other parents. I don't socialize really with anybody because I don't like socializing. It's just not my thing. And however, when uh, I had done a lot of stuff in the corporate world, and then I was a chief technology officer for a medical startup, and we sold that in '04. And when I was still in LA, and the real estate market was pretty amazing at that time. And pretty much if you were breathing and you had a real estate license, you were making good money. And I'm looking around, I'm thinking, man, these guys are idiots. No offense, but I mean, some of these people are not so bright, and they're making really. How hard can this be, right? How hard can this be? So I didn't have a job, and I didn't want to go back into IT or consulting, and I thought, oh, I might as well try real estate, and I could be, and mostly I could be home because my daughter was born. I got my real estate license March 15th, 2005. My daughter was born 6 weeks later. That was my third child. And I thought, I want to be home and raise my kids. I don't want to be on a plane. I don't want to be traveling. I don't want 3 hour, I want to be commuting for a couple hours a day. I don't want to do any of that. And so that's how I got into real estate. Of course, that's not how you're going to succeed in real estate, but that's why I got into real estate. Succeeding in real estate, that's a whole different ballgame.
Amen. Amen. Yeah, the flexibility and being able to adapt to the new stage of life, and be with your family more. That's huge. Yeah, that's definitely one
Yeah.
of the wonderful parts about this career. And so, but okay, so you got into real estate. It seemed like a good fit for you at the time, and then the opportunity was there. And apparently, you got in there right before, well, like coming up to the crash. Like, when did you get
Yes.
your license? Was it 2005?
March of '05. And of
Okay.
course, as smart as I thought I was, it just because I was smart and I had a real estate license doesn't mean I was going to do business. And yeah, so I sold a few houses the first year, but not very many. And so by the time I started going in '06, which was not a bad year, but then '07, by the middle of '07, that was it, right? That was the beginning of the
Mhm.
end. So really, for the next 5 years, it was pretty rough go. And then, of course, I moved in the middle of that, right? So even as I'd starting to get traction in LA, building this business, we just upped and moved to Colorado, start all over again, in the worst economy, hopefully I'll ever see, but no guarantees
Mhm.
of that. So it was really difficult, and anyone who's thinking of moving markets, uh, you better think twice. It's really hard. It's much easier to stay where you're at. And had I stayed in LA, I would have made way more money, way faster, would have been way easier. On
Yeah.
the other hand, it's not where I wanted to live and raise my family, which was most important. And I wouldn't have the life I have now, which is very different. I know I'm not that I could go back and predict. So, right, money is not always the most important thing. But for people who are thinking about picking or switching markets, you really want to pick a spot that uh, you can be in 10, 15, 20 years from now. Like if you don't like it now,
Yeah.
like if you're working a geographic area or working a different or a demographic, and you don't really like those people, and you don't really like those people that live in those kinds of neighborhoods, switch because it's not going to change.
Figure it out sooner rather than later,
Sooner than later. And that
huh?
is one of the gifts of door knock, right? You get to learn a lot of
Mhm.
different neighborhoods. I've knocked a lot of different places. And so I've seen a lot, and which gave me a good background for the types of people that I resonated with. I wasn't trying to resonate with people who I just don't naturally resonate with. It's just not a fit for me.
Oh, so you kind of, do you choose where you feel like you're gonna have more people that are like your kind of people to
I
go
do.
door knock? Yeah.
I did. I, uh, I don't know that when I was in California, I started in the neighborhood in the city I lived in.
Hmm.
When I got to Colorado, the market was in the toilet. And so I wasn't working a geographic farm, probably going to work for me at the time. I was pretty certain. And I didn't really know much geography because I wasn't from here, right? I didn't know
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah.
So really, I was just opportunistic. I would find um, either my broker, or I got to befriend other agents who were REO agents who were
Hmm.
specializing in bank-owned listings. And then I got befriended them, and then they give me a heads up and when they had something coming, and I'd go knock that area and try and go find a buyer for that house.
Mm,
And so it's very
gotcha.
opportunistic. On the other hand, I got to learn a lot of different areas, see a lot of different things that people even in the Denver area. And I know more than the people who've grown up here. I've just been around, right? So it's kind of, that's kind of that's sort of one of the messages of the book, is that we get so hung up on the immediate result, we miss the bigger picture, that there's so much opportunity, right? Subtitle of the book, Boundless Opportunity and Freedom.
Mm,
There's so much opportunity in all that we're doing. And
mhm,
one of the opportunities at the doors is just to be aware, just to be knowledgeable about things that I would not have otherwise seen as a real estate agent. You get to meet people, you get to feel out why they're moving and coming into that area, why they're leaving that area, why they stay. Right. So there's so many things that are of value that we
mhm,
can be doing that we just miss because we're like, no, I got to make a sale. Well,
mhm.
if that's your only objective, and there's nothing wrong with making a sale, we all need to feed our families, pay our bills.
Yeah.
But it is more than just paying our bills if we want to learn and grow.
Right. Yeah, definitely. And become that advisor that you describe, in the book. Um, so you were able to create your business around door knocking. So I definitely find that as a form of creativity and sort of agency, like
Yeah.
in the other sense of the word, just like the ability to choose, this is how I'm going to go about this. Would you say that I mean, a lot, I guess typically door knocking is thought of an old school technique in real estate. Do you think in general you lean more toward old school techniques rather than the more, I don't know, the more like Instagram or email blasts and stuff like that, the newer, I guess the more modern techniques? Do you lean more toward the old ones in general, or is it a mix?
That's funny that you asked that question, because immediately what I thought of is all the old timers in the business who I really gravitated towards when I got in the business, and who really helped share the wisdom of being in the business 20, 30, 40 plus years. And there's something to be said for people who've been around several decades. And
Mhm.
I love having older clients. I have lots of millennials and younger clients too, and I love them too.
Mhm.
It's funny, right? Because they look up to me the way I look up to my older clients, right? It is the wisdom that comes with a little bit of extra experience. And so, having said that, talking to people face to face is a old school kind of uh, kind of uh, method. On the other hand, for now, for now, unless you work in a resort market, we have to talk to people to sell homes, and we have to talk to people to get them through a negotiation and through a transaction. And if your people skill, if you're great at Instagram or Facebook or however else, or web leads, however else you're generating business, no problem. However, if you're going to be a trusted advisor and you're building an advisory practice, not a transactional practice, but an advisory practice, you got to know how to deal with people. And that skill is learned. It is not, I mean, maybe some people are naturally gifted at that, but for most of us,
Mhm.
we learn how to do that. So I sort of jumped around that question, but the answer is yes. I much prefer old school face to face than any. I'm not on Instagram or Facebook or any of that stuff. So if you see me on there, it's because my niece is doing it for me, because I have to have something, but I'm never on it.
Yeah. That's really interesting. And because not only you, I don't feel like you jumped around the question. I feel like you tackled it pretty well, but not only that, but you also really highlighted the distinction between an advisory business and a transactional business. Um, and I don't know, I think what you're saying suggests that um, having a good deal of face-to-face hours, logging those face-to-face hours contributes to building the advisory business. And perhaps I don't know. It's not like I don't have the research in front of me. Who knows? But maybe sending text back and forth isn't as effective for the long-term relationship building.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that it doesn't, like, it's not that I don't text clients. I don't want to say that I don't
Yeah.
do that stuff.
Yeah.
What I am saying is, uh, I always felt this, and then I heard somebody much smarter than me say this, so I feel a little validated. So everyone listening can make their own judgment. But if you're not familiar with Adam Robinson, he's the guy that co-created the Princeton Review. He's a chess master. He's a highly paid advisor to some of the wealthiest families and hedge funds advisors. Totally messed up his intro, but you can look him up. You can't not find him. Very smart guy. And his view of the future is, I think what he said is, emotional connection trumps everything. So your ability to succeed in the future through AI and all the other stuff is your ability to connect and interact with other human beings. And if you can do that well, you'll do well. You'll be okay. Was essentially his premise. And I absolutely believe that, because I look around me at my fellow agents who, are afraid to pick up the phone, afraid to knock on the door, afraid to have a tough conversation, not able to regulate their emotions, not, all these things that make a transaction difficult and stressful. And not that you can take all of that out, but if you can learn to do that, you're going to be, it helps take the fear away, and it allows you to be present and in the moment and be effective for yourself and for your clients. I'll say for me, for myself, and for my clients. I'll speak for myself. That's been my experience.
I hear you. I hear you. I find myself wondering now. So as far as overcoming the introversion, or I mean, at least putting it to the side, how do you tackle something like door knocking? I mean, that seems like an extroverted activity on the surface.
Yeah, no, that is the perfect question. I was going to go into that earlier when I talked about getting my real estate license, but you teed it up for now, so it's perfect. Yes. And here's the thing, and you read the book, so you have to have a why. And the answer is, my why was, I wanted to be home and raise my kids, which meant I had to pay for them too. And I did. And so if I wanted to stay in real estate and be home, and I wanted to provide for my kids, I had to find a way to make it work. And because all the other non-social things, I was left with not too many choices. I didn't have a big budget to spend on marketing and other lead gen. And by the way, smartphones weren't even out in 2005 when I got my license. And so I had to do something. And so I had a real estate coach. He said, it's a simple business. Knock on heads, knock on doors, pick one. You got to talk to people. And after a couple of months, I'm like, I guess I better try this knocking on doors thing. And so it literally is, I've got to make this work. I can't not fail. I have to find a way. And if my only choice is to go knock on doors, well, I guess I better go do that. And the other thing about it is, right, people have been knocking on doors selling stuff-ish for like 100 years. Like, this is like not a new thing.
Yeah, that's
so
true.
I'm not reinventing the wheel. I know it works. And the other thing is, even back then, but right now, homes are so expensive, and they're such an important part of the culture, and people are they want to talk about real estate. And so if you're educated and you can be a contribution and be of service and be competent at the door, people actually want to talk to you.
Yeah.
But that's not how it started. Just to be clear, I was terrified and I was terrible at it. So I just be right up front. I sucked for a long time. It took me a long time.
Takes time. I have dabbled in door knocking myself. That first year I had my real estate license. We lived in downtown St. Augustine, which is a really cool area. And I was like, man, if this could be my farm area and I could be selling homes around here, that would be amazing. I mean, they're really unique homes. The price point is a promising price point for an agent to get into. So I said, I'm gonna try door knocking. I'm gonna do it. I printed out some like door hangers in case they weren't home. And I organized myself as best as I could. I knew I was gonna have to take notes because I can't remember. I knew I wouldn't be able to remember what each person said, after each door. I knew it's in my mind, it's going to be kind of jumbled up at the end because it's a lot. It was, I had a plan to knock on a lot of doors. So the only way I was able to do it, because I am shy, even though I'm doing this video stuff and all that, like I'm an introvert. If I had my complete choice of how to spend my day, I'd be like on the couch reading a book or writing or something. I mean, I'm not like super outgoing. So um I had to kind of, this sounds ridiculous, but we were watching Westworld at the time. I don't know if you've seen Westworld, but it's like it's a theme park with robots. So I kind of just pretended I was a robot, but like a really like human like one with, a personality. But I just kind of went out of my own. I just was like, I'm just not going to be I just had to pretend I was somebody else to do it, to be honest with you. I don't know if that makes sense, but otherwise it was not something that's in my wheelhouse of something that I was like, oh, I'm going to go knock on doors and talk to people. I
Yeah.
did it and it went okay. I met a few people. It didn't turn into sales for me and I didn't stick with it long enough. I didn't have the persistence with it that you did, but I did it for a few days and I was like, all right, I'm good. I handed
Yeah.
out all of the things. I'm going to take a break from that now. It's hard work. It's
It
really
is
hard
hard.
work.
It is hard.
A couple times I was scared their dog was going to bite me. I went into the yard and there's a dog and I didn't realize there was one. I was like, whew, maybe this isn't for me.
Yeah. Totally fine.
Yeah.
Totally
And some
fine.
people wanted to invite me in. Maybe it was just a guy that lived there. And I was like, should I go into their house? Is this
No,
dangerous? I don't know what to do.
don't go in.
No, never. Don't go in. Do you usually just stay outside?
Always. There
Yeah.
has to be a very compelling reason to go in. Like,
Yeah.
uh, yeah, I mean, I only go in for two reasons. Well, really one reason, and I have gone in. So the only reason I go in is if it's a house I really want to see. There's something specific about that house. Like there was this $5 million house in one of my farm areas, and the guy who built it, I caught him at home, and he wanted to show me the house. Right, it's an architectural
Mm.
masterpiece. Yeah, I want to see the
Mm.
house because the odds of me
Yeah.
getting in to see
Yeah.
it, and he's open to selling. He's like, you bring me a buyer, I'll sell for. All right, I'm in. I'll take 10
Mm.
minutes. But
Mm-hmm.
that's pretty rare. I don't need to go into too many houses. I know what houses look like, so I don't need to go in. And there's very little that I'm going to accomplish by breaking my rhythm to go into someone's house to create rapport and trust. I have done it, and my experience is I didn't need to do it. So
Okay.
so the so that's that. And the only other time I've been in someone else's house is this. There's a little tangent story here. Is this woman Thelma, and I met Thelma in 2015. She used to live on the street called Garfield, and she rented this house with her son, and she was maybe in her 60s, or but she was kind of an older generation, so she wasn't that old, but she was from an older generation, and she's from Guatemala, and she speaks with a little accent, but mostly her accent's from the East Coast. And I met her one time, and then the second time I met her in 2015, she opens the door and she says, I said, hi, Thelma, remember me? It's Steven. She says, oh, yeah, come in. It was not a request. It was a command.
Yeah.
And she's
Sounds
like,
like it.
she's like 3 feet tall, right? She's 3 feet tall, this little
Yeah.
Guatemalan woman. And there was just something. And so I went in, and she's like I don't know what you call it. She's like a medium, like a seer. She can just, and like that day, like altered the trajectory of my life. Like she's like, I had all my door knocking stuff, and she's like, this stuff, this real estate stuff, that's not for you. I see you on a stage in front of hundreds of people. And in that moment, I had already decided I wanted to be a speaker and a trainer, and but it was like just in my head. And then she would just say all this, and and uh, she's like a little angel, and she just kind of
Mhm.
looks out for me, and she's like, you have guardian. It's I could go on a whole other tangent that most people could care less about, but it's like the exception,
Mhm.
exception. So I
Yes.
just, so I think the point is right there, we have these rules that we follow, and we try not to make the exceptions the rule, right? Just like I go out every day at the doors at the same time. There's very few exceptions, otherwise they become the rule. But
Oh,
big
yeah.
tangent switch, but it's just one of the things that never would have happened if I didn't push myself to go do something I didn't feel like doing. Right? I could
Right.
go on and on and on and on, telling all
Yeah.
these awesome stories about all these amazing things that have happened to me,
Yeah.
including this afternoon. I have a client I met. I didn't meet him through the doors. I met his mom through the doors, and then he became a client, and I helped him buy and sell a couple properties. And so he has a property. So I'm in Denver. His property is south, and it's on 10 acres, and he has these alpacas. And every year you have to shear the alpacas, and then you shear the fur. And anyway, so my kids and I, we're invited every year to his alpaca sharing, and we're like part of the family. Again, never
Oh
would have
my
happened if I
gosh.
didn't knock on his. So the point is,
Yeah.
right? If you whatever you're up to, whether it's knocking on doors or however you're going to go out and talk to people, it's over time, right? It's over time. You get to meet these people because you never know when
Mhm.
that person's going to be behind the door. And again,
Mhm.
as you said, the door is just a metaphor. Whatever you're doing, that you're going to go out and
Mhm.
meet people, whether you do it through networking events or you join clubs, you're part of Toastmasters, you're a Rotarian, whatever. It doesn't
Mhm.
matter. No, I don't feel like going to Rotary today. No, that's the day you should be going, because you don't feel like going is
Mhm.
exactly the reason you should be going.
That
Every
is really
day,
cool.
every day I didn't feel like door knocking, or every day I felt like cutting early, some miracle happened around the corner.
Mhm. Oh,
Always.
wow. That's neat. That resistance. You have a
Yes.
section in your book about the resistance
Yeah.
and that being like gravity in life, just something we have to push against and overcome. And it sounds
That,
like that's when it got stronger was the time you had to push a little harder.
that's right. Yeah,
That's
no,
interesting.
that's well said.
I love the Thelma exception. That's cool. Because you said, well, I like what you said about the exception becoming the rule. If you keep making the same exception, it's going to become status quo for you. Like if you
Right.
skip exercising 4 days in a row, all of a sudden it's like, well, I don't exercise every day anymore. That's my new norm. So it's important to be creative about our day and be the more of the creator behind it. And I want to actually move in that direction because you have a chapter in your book where you actually talk specifically about that. It's chapter 2. And I'm just going to read how this chapter opens. And the title of the chapter is "Why Are You Here?" I believe.
Yep.
Um, okay, so this is the first sentence of the chapter. Congratulations. You woke up today because you didn't die the night before. Now what? What are you going to do today? Is your day a creation or are you just operating from what comes at you? So I highlighted that one in my Kindle. Um, I mean, not only are you talking about a form of creativity, and not the kind of creativity where you're just all over the place like a wild crazy artist kind of thing, but the kind of creativity that's is specific about what they want and about what they are planning to do with their time on earth on that day. So um, I think that's really important for real estate agents to spend time thinking about because our job, yes, we have the freedom and the flexibility, which is wonderful, but that can also be challenge. It can be a challenge because it's really easy to go down rabbit holes and spend time doing things that aren't effective or aren't productive. So, do you want to talk a little bit about how you overcome resistance and also use your creative vision to plan your day and maybe even larger than your day, just kind of plan over time, like even writing the project, like writing a book or speaking on a stage? What kind of things do you do to keep yourself on track?
Yeah. Well, that was a lot. We could do another hour just on that. So I'll try and succinctly get to those. So let's start with the creation part. I I'm not the first person to say something like that. And I heard someone else say that to me one time. So it's not, that there's nothing new there. But we don't operate that, right? So the fact that we may have heard that or we know that to be the case doesn't mean it makes any difference, because mostly we wake up and not me, because I don't keep my phone in my room, but most people wake up and the first thing they do is grab their phone or whatever, right? They check messages. They don't, nothing is on purpose. It just by default. And so do we want to live a life by default, or do we want to create something that actually makes a difference? And I'm not saying that I wake up every day perfectly, but at least the days that I'm not creating something magical, that's on me. That's not life's fault. That's Stephen just being lazy or being human or giving into the resistance, which I'll talk to in a second. So, for me, it's different depending on where I am in the season, right? Different times a year call for different activities and what I'm looking forward to, and, what projects I'm working on outside of real estate. And so it really is by design. And I know that if I don't spend time every morning thinking about that, then, I end up living a life by default.
Mhm.
And then, in terms of the resistance, that's resistance with the capital R. That was by Stephen Pressfield, if anyone's familiar with The War of Art, and he's written other books and he's spoken at length about it. He's a master at defining it. And so whatever I say will, of course, will be less than that. But I did read that book in 06, 07, and it became very clear that what my goal to get to the doors every day was a very good lesson in resistance, because every day I try and get to the doors and then there'd be all these things that would come up or be in the way to get me from being at the doors. And what I learned is that's all resistance. It's just this force that wants to keep things, it's a survival. It is what Seth Godin calls the lizard brain, right? It is just that survival mechanism in us that wants to keep things the way they are. Because, okay, I'm okay right now, so let's just keep things the way they are. Don't go out and knock on doors. That's terrifying. Who wants to do that? Right? Who wants to write a book and be vulnerable and put that out in front of everyone? That's a terrible idea, right? Says the resistance. And so, the resistance wants us to sleep in instead of getting up early and work on what we said we'd work on. Resistance wants us to conveniently forget supplies at home. So we drive to where we're going to go door knock and we realize we left our shoes at home or whatever. Right? Those things happened to me, which is why I felt like I'm going
The
to put
shoes?
everything.
You forgot your shoes.
I know one time I have, but very, very rarely. Well, actually, what I had forgotten was I used to, I don't have my shoes near me, but I used to have special inserts for my special orthotics. Well, if I had the same, dummy me, I only had one pair. I should have had two. One for my running shoes and one for my walking shoes. So, I go for a run in the morning, I forget to take the inserts out and put them in the trunk of my car. And so I have shoes, but I have no insoles, So then you get to learn, you keep everything in your car because resistance will get you. That kind of thing, right? So there's all these little lessons. And so I just look for resistance everywhere. Anytime I don't feel like doing something, there, it's some form of resistance, either as a distraction or a fear of something, or it's usually one of those two categories. And then, so that's resistance. And then the third thing you asked was what? There's a third piece to that.
I think I asked you how you tackled, well, you kind of tackled how you tackled. I was asking about your book, like the long-term game. How do you orchestrate your life based on not just your daily goals, but your long-term goals?
Yeah, I mean, I think the answer is, well, when I first thought I wanted to, when I around the time that I told the Thelma story, like I knew I wanted to speak. In 2016, I started teaching classes, and but I didn't really know what my message was, and I didn't really know who I was trying to help, and I really didn't know how I was going to do that. I was in a Toastmasters group, and so I learned to speak, and I learned lots of skills, but I wasn't sure yet what my message was. And although maybe frustrating at times, like building my real estate business, I realized that I just had to let things lie as they would. There was no way I was going to short circuit the process, and there's no way I could have gotten to where I am this moment 4 years ago or 5 years ago. Like things had to play out the way they played out, including the pandemic, right? Including COVID
Yeah.
last
Yeah.
year.
Yeah.
And so I think one of one of the things that I've gotten is uh, there's no rush. There's plenty of time for things to work themselves out.
Mhm.
And of course, life is short, right? It, I
It's-
blinked and I've been in real estate 17 years, right? So
yeah.
life is short. But
Yeah.
so there is a balance, but we can't, if you're a real estate agent listening, we can't make anybody do anything. You can't make a buyer buy. We can't make a seller sell. We can't make a seller take an offer. We can't make a buyer pay more or less. We can't make anyone do anything. And that's a great lesson for everything else we're up to, is realize that we're not in charge of any of that stuff. We're in charge of
Mm.
ourselves, and that's about it. And being willing to let the process play itself out and being okay with however it turns out has worked out okay, because then I'm not left upset at the way things have gone or my inability to make something happen, right? Because
Mm.
I can't do that. I can only take action every day. So again, doors was a great example. I had no control who opened the door, who was behind the door, who called me back, who didn't, right? None of that. All I could control is, did I go to the doors today or not? Did I write today or not? And during COVID, I'm not at the doors. Did I make my calls today or not? Did I reach out to people or not? It's black or white,
Mm.
right? Not
Right.
complicated, not elaborate, not 52 steps to get to heaven, or, it's
Mm.
one thing. And so figuring out what the one thing is, and then doing that has seemed to work out to keep putting me in the right direction. Right. So in terms of my long-term goals, it's more of a journey. And I don't
Mhm.
really there's no real place to get to. But am I having fun? Going back to how we were starting, am I having fun? Because if I'm not having fun, this is I don't want to be on this car ride. Switch
Mm.
cars, switch
Yeah.
destinations, or switch
Yeah.
passengers. I'm with the wrong people. You guys go that way. Get me out of this car.
Oh my gosh. No, that's a wonderful answer. No, there's so much that has to unfold that is not within our control. I mean, we can control our attitude to some extent, beyond our genetic predispositions to be one way or the other. By perhaps by putting more humor in our life. And we can work on patience, and we can improve ourselves as professionals and advisors. But yeah, at the end of the day, we can't, there's a lot we can't rush. So that's a very good point. With with your, with your book and with COVID, actually, when did you publish your book? When was this done?
It was published February of 2021
Oh,
for this year. Yeah, it
oh
just came out.
my gosh. Okay. To be honest with you, I did not realize this was such a recent, um, a newly born book, a newborn,
Yeah,
a few months ago. Well, that's
yeah,
amazing.
yeah.
So, I'm curious to actually get into a little bit more of what you did during the pandemic, because that's an excellent example of a time when, uh, you can either react or create. And it looks like you chose to create. Is that what happened?
I mean, don't get me wrong. I had my own freak out moments. I thought I had to, like many people, sit and read every article and figure out how it was all going to turn out. Which, after about 60 days, I'm like, what am I doing? But I wasn't at the doors. My whole life had turned upside down like everyone else's. So, but what had happened is I had decided to write the book in November of 19. I started writing, or maybe October 19. November 19, I hired a book coach and started writing. And I had the first draft done on January 1st, 2020. It was missing a chapter one. So what's currently chapter one wasn't there. The preface was chapter one. And then the year started and I'm like, oh, my book coach read it and she's like, yeah, it's missing a chapter one. Yeah, I got it. Thank you. And then COVID happened, and then I had time to just be home and think and reflect. And so I spent a lot of time thinking. And that's when I came up with chapter one, which really is the framework for how I view the real estate business and where I actually can help people the most. And that came out of that April, May timeframe. I think I had it written by the end of May. And so then I had a draft ready for editorial review board by the July 4th weekend. And then it took me the rest of the year to get that all finished, edited, published, laid out, all the finishing touches. So I spent a lot of last year working on the book, not necessarily writing the book, because the book had been written, editing, tweaking, kind of stuff. Yeah.
Polishing.
Yes.
Wow. Well, that's quite an accomplishment. I think it's really cool that you have published a book, and obviously you're a gifted writer. Did you realize that you were enjoyed writing, or that you were good at writing, or was that a surprise?
It was. I think you and I had shared on an earlier call. You and I were talking. I was talking about the one piece of marketing that I ever did to my database was like a personal letter, and I'd send out one or two a year. And I mean, I kind of knew that I was okay as a writer and a speaker, based on the feedback I got from my Toastmasters club and speaking at a few events. But the more I started writing, the more I felt like I got a little better, and the more it resonated with people. And so now when I write something and I send it out, I get a lot of feedback and affirming feedback. And so for people to go out of the way and say the things they say is very, what's the right word? There is a piece of it that hits my ego that's like, oh, that feels really good. But I also know that's not the point. That's a trap.
Yeah.
And mostly what I'm looking for is, are people resonating with the message? So did I say something? So not yay, Stephen, but did I say something that it landed with them, that it made a difference? And so when I write those letters, for example, to my clients, I want them to see themselves in the story that I tell. And so what I'm looking for when they send feedback is, yes, I remember when. And then I know that I've hit my message. And so the same thing on the book is, I'm listening for people's reactions, how it landed for them, and is it something that's going to make a difference in their real estate career.
That's really nice. And it probably sets you up for long-term success, because you're not going to get pulled in by the quick gratifications involved. You're taking it as signals, like, okay, I'm on the right track here. Let's keep going.
Yeah.
That's really cool. Well, before we close up, do you want to describe a little bit more about the letter from the heart? Because I don't know you kind of mentioned it in the way that we had talked about it, but I don't know if you explained exactly what it is completely for somebody that didn't know what we were talking about.
Sure. And by the way, this is not my idea again, right? I don't need lots of great ideas. I just need to execute. There's plenty of great ideas out there. Just execute is the lesson here. Right. And the idea I got from one of my lenders who was a member of Core Coaching, and they used to write, I think the Core Coaching group calls it the letter from the heart. And that's all I remember. Whatever that, I think they might do it every month. I send 3 or 4 a year. I think that's more than enough for me. And it's a personal letter that's not real estate related. So it's just, I'm telling people, this is the way I view it. And anyone listening, if you don't knock on doors, you can equate it to your own, make the metaphor yours. I write the letters if I was at your door, Anastasia, and if I was at your door giving you the 1 minute update on Stephen over the last quarter and his family, that's essentially what the letter's written. That's how I write the letter. But I write the letter not as in, yeah, we went to Disneyland and then we did this and then we had this and then I'm trying to look for some lesson learned from my point of view or something I saw that in that experience, and I want to share that with you so that it lands with you. So it's not yay Stephen and his kids. That's a great story, but I'm left thinking about myself, one thing or another. So that's how I write them.
Yeah. Mhm.
I don't know that that's the right way, but that's the way that I write them, and it seems to resonate with the people in my database. So I'm gonna keep writing them that way.
I think it's great. I think it's great. And you brought up a good point too. I mean, we are in the age of just kind of like showing off, I mean, that's what a lot of social media is. It seems like, I mean, and that's just, I mean, I'm not saying that's right or wrong, but you know, there's a lot of like, I sold this many houses, or I did this, or we went here and it was so much fun. But to make connections with people, I mean, people are kind of interested in you, but they're more interested in themselves. I mean, everybody's really interested in themselves. So to have something that resonates with them and speaks to them, and that they can see themselves in you and your experience, and you can share that, I mean, that's gonna build a connection right there. So I think that's great. Yeah. Um, well, it's been wonderful speaking with you, Stephen. You're so inspiring, and it's a nice contrast to the other guests that I've had, because I think you're one of the you have some different strategies than a number of other people. I love hearing all of them. I love hearing all different ways about going about this business, but this has been really, really neat. So thank you so much for all of the information you shared.
It's my pleasure.
And before you go, definitely let people know how they can find you, whether for real estate over in Colorado or realtors looking to learn more about your techniques and things like that.
Awesome. Yeah. So for the book, doorsopenwhenyouknock.com. So it's doors open. So doors open. Doors don't open themselves. Doors open when you knock. That's how you remember this title, doorsopenwhenyouKnock.com. And if you do have some real estate needs in Colorado, you can go there. But my personal or my real estate website is thestephenrossgroup.com. So thestephenrossgroup.com if you need some help with real estate in Colorado. But otherwise, doorsopenwhenyouknock.com.
Awesome. And guys, don't forget, he is Stephen with a V. So don't get confused. Don't go contacting the Miami Dolphins guy.
No, yeah, don't do that.
All right. Well, have a great rest of your day. Thanks again. And